Okay, now it works. I have to introduce the session of today. You can see here the program. The topic is innovation. I will give a short introduction, some concepts, really short, and most of the presentations today are case studies you see here, so you will have the opportunity to see real cases from companies and from academia about projects for low resource settings. This morning we will have a couple of them from two startup companies. Then after the break, Andres Diaz-Lantada from Madrid will talk about key enabling design and manufacturing technologies for open source medical devices. Then you will have 1 hour for group work before lunch break. And in the afternoon, again, 3 case studies, one from Warwick, Katie Stokes, we present AI for pneumonia detection. Then Gabriella Signorini from Polytechnic of Milan, medical device solution for maternal health. And then one presentation, Maria Laura Costantino cannot be here, so Francesco De Gaetano, if I remember well, will present Bambi, balloon against postpartum maternal bleeding. And as yesterday, you will have the rest of the day, and in case of the night, if you like, for group work again. So, I will start with a short introduction about reverse and frugal or jugaad innovation. So the focus is on innovation. So let's start asking what's innovation? And this is related probably with a more general question, what's development? I always remember some decades ago, I was in Tanzania and talking with a guy there. I asked him, do you think that there will be the possibility of development for Tanzania? Tanzania was a quite interesting political and social experiment. And in those years, maybe you could, and I think you should know, Nyerere, that was the head of the nation, let's say, in Tanzania, and tried this kind of African way to socialism. So it was quite a peculiar kind of economical and political system. And the question was, is it something that can lead Tanzania to development? And the answer was, what's development? When I'm happy, I'm developed. Of course, I don't want to be too simplistic, but this is an open question. I'm going to pose many questions in this short presentation and no many answers. So I just want to invite you to keep these questions with you and eventually find your answers. Another question is innovation necessary? In particular, it can be argued that it would be possible or sufficient to extend to low resource settings to share solutions, technology that we already have. And this should be the priority. I have an answer for this question, I think, and the answer is no. It's not possible, it's not sufficient, it's not sustainable to extend, to share our solutions, our technologies to low resource settings. And why? Because most of the modern technology has been developed in Western countries, and so it is not sensitive to different contexts, and contexts themselves are continuously changing, so need new solutions. Moreover, there is the sustainability issue. And I have here data about cars. It's not about medical devices, but it's an easy example about the number of cars per capita in the world. In Italy and also in US, we have more or less 0.7 cars per capita. In the world, we have 1.2 billion cars, hence 0.15. Should we have the same numbers of cars everywhere in the world? It would mean 5.6 billion cars. This is not sustainable. This is quite a new issue, or something we became aware more recently. And also in health, in all the sectors of technology, this is an important issue. One can argue, why should we have everywhere the same number of cars? Having a car is probably not a human right, and we can argue, again, it's an open issue, open question, that it's okay having more cars somewhere. But healthcare, better to say, it's a human right, so we cannot think of keep inequalities in the field of healthcare. So global health calls for innovation. However, not any kind of innovation can be sustainable, can contribute to sustainable development. And I think, and we will have also presentations about this tomorrow, innovation that does not take into account since the beginning, since the initial conception, its accessibility won't likely contribute to the human development as set by the SDGs. So it's not only a matter of time. We can innovate here in the more developed countries, and then they will simply import what they desire from the rich world just as soon as they can afford it. It's not a matter of time. So innovation is needed and can play a pivotal role in addressing the unmet needs in low resource settings. But this innovation must comply with all the peculiar resources, limitations, barriers, specific needs, their context of use. Maybe we need to innovate innovation, okay? And this is something innovators and thinkers are working around since now many decades. And I want to give you just some concepts starting from three books. I also have hard copies there, and I will put here if someone wants to have a look. The first one is definitely not recent. You see, 1973, Small is Beautiful, and it put the concept of appropriate technology we are using now frequently. The second one, also the other two are not so recent, but now 10 years ago were published. The one titled Jugaad Innovation, presenting the concept of frugal innovation, and the last one about reverse innovation. So let's start with the concept of appropriate technology. Often Gandhi, the Indian leader, is cited as the father of the concept of appropriate technology. Indeed, in his idea, technology must not create forms of exploitation of human beings, and technology should be small scale, based on cooperative systems. Goods and services should be produced that people really need. All these are concepts that are included in the philosophy, let's say, of appropriate technology. Actually, the concept and the philosophy was coined and presented by an economist, Ernest Fritz Schumacher, with a long-lasting career both in academia and on the field as a consultant, as a manager in developing nations, in Indonesia for sure, and even others. And in 1973, he published Small is Beautiful, a study of economics as if people mattered. And the concepts, there is no actually precise definition of appropriate technology in the book, but the main concepts are there. So I looked for a definition and I found several, many. So let's just have for many sources, a list to check, to pick the main concepts. So appropriate technology is something appropriate to the context it is intended for, from different point of view, environmental, cultural, economical. Appropriate technology is based on the individual needs of an area or a population, and in general use simple and user-friendly products. Is creative and people-focused. Again, recognize social, environmental, cultural, political, economic concerns as important as technical requirements. So we are talking about technology, but many other aspects are included. So in general, appropriate technology is a group of design tenets that span from cultural, consumer, technological levels. And indeed, in the Alma Ata declaration that Angelo Stefanini pointed out to our attention yesterday, we can find exactly the same concept. So primary health care should be based on practical, scientifically sound, and socially acceptable methods and technology, made universally accessible to individuals and families in the community through their full participation at a cost that the community and country can afford, to maintain at every stage of the development in the spirit of self-reliance and self-determination. So these principles are based on that source. So what about medical technology? Because appropriate technology is a very general concept and philosophy, I would say, encompassing all the fields. What about medical technology? Again, there's no exhaustive list of criteria, of aspects. In my course, I usually ask students to do a brainstorming. What are the aspects that medical technology should take into account in low resource settings? And so this is a not exhaustive list of them. The first aspect that we probably all think about is cost. To be appropriate technology in a low resource setting, it has to be affordable, and this should include both the cost for production, but also operational costs, repair and maintenance costs, both monetarily and in labor. Should be built locally, made with locally available materials, easily repaired by local people with locally available equipment and available skills. Suitable disposable, not polluting in its disposal or recycling, even better. Using renewable sources of energy, and in general, no need for stable power grid that might be not available. Create job opportunities. Simple, small scale, appropriate to the community. So usability, again, easy to use by the intended users. Culturally acceptable, with a reduced need for high quality water, again, might be not available. Reduce or no need for disposables. And every year, some new aspects come out from the students, so it's not a complete list. I would also suggest you this reading a very interesting paper on an IEEE journal about questions about appropriate technology, because as always, the concept is the reality is complex. So there is a number of open issues that can be raised. So when dealing with appropriate technology, should we design technology for aid or for trade? This is something we will discuss again in few minutes. Should technology solutions leverage Western or indigenous knowledge? I'm not going to give answers. Is that technology appropriate if it violates cultural norms? Probably we all would answer no, but sometimes cultural norms can be unacceptable for us in relation to human rights. Should appropriate technology products be localized for a specific region or trying to be standardized for a larger population? Should technology rely on local materials and manufacturing operations? Yes, in general, yes, but always? Is it always possible? Should technology be designed for individual or community ownership? And we should always strive for the cheapest solution. Is the technology appropriate if it benefits some people but hurts others? Maybe not. This can be easily answered. Should labor-intensive tasks be replaced with automated systems? Should technologies be de-skilled to allow more people to use them? And so on. The conclusions of that paper that I want to propose you is that the rules for appropriate technology development must be considered as a series of trade-offs, not rigid rules. And they have to be informed by the specific communities to which we are targeting our innovation and their context. Though all appropriate technology projects have the same overall goal of improving the lives of communities, they operate in different environments with different problems to be solved. So a systems approach is needed. Finally, about appropriate technology, I want to suggest you this wiki website, appropedia.org. You can find, it's not really, maybe not straightforward, but you can find a section about medical appropriate technologies, and you can find examples, maybe also useful for your projects, I don't know. And last, a provocative point. Paul Pollack, a quite famous innovator and thinker working in developing countries, wrote a few years ago a post titled "The Death of Appropriate Technology Organization." And he argued that the production of appropriate technology has died as the organizations producing appropriate technology did not apply business models with an emphasis on financial viability. And he wrote this, this paper, "The Death of Appropriate Technology. If you can't sell it, don't do it," which is provocative. And thinking to what Leandro told us, we want to have an impact. And if we want to have an impact as engineers, and our job is to design and products and systems, those systems have to be produced and bought by someone. So we have to sell them. This is something, as especially in academia, we are not used to think so much, and it's really important. And we will see some examples from companies, people working in companies, struggling with this point. So probably also along this line of thinking, books a bit less philosophical and more oriented to design and to business were published. The first one was Jugaad Innovation. Jugaad is a Hindi word meaning clever solution to fix problems, something like this. And followed a couple of years ago by frugal innovation. The first one is more specifically devoted to low resource settings. The second one aims frugal innovation to propose this approach also everywhere, let's say, in the world. And by the same authors, Navi Raju and Jaideep Prabhu. And there is also a couple of other interesting sources you could look for. One is about frugal innovation in medicine for low resource settings, published by BMC Medicine. And the other one from a Journal of Frugal Innovation that started a few years ago. Unfortunately, it was closed, apparently. I'm not able to find anymore this journal, but some papers can be found on the web. What is frugal innovation? It's the ability to do more with less. This is the incipit of the book, so that the source constraints are considered innovation and business opportunity, not as liability. To point out some more precise criteria, the three central criteria for frugal innovation are substantial cost reduction, concentration on core functionalities, optimized performance level. So to do more optimized performance level with less. I think I have to run a bit. Two forces drive frugal innovation. One is from companies or by organizations such as WHO, another one is PATH, and the other is from low-cost, homegrown fixes using low-tech or even no-tech solutions. About WHO, the compendium of innovative health technologies that, again, Leandro mentioned yesterday is a very nice collection of solutions, and most or many of them can be considered frugal innovation solutions. And I had the 2015 edition, and I had this year we have the new one. So from these two drivers, high-tech, homegrown, regarding the frugal innovation in medicine, in this website, frugalinnovationmedicine.com, in which, again, you can find some examples, not so many, I have to say, but some interesting examples. The frugal innovations are classified in four categories that can help us to understand the kind of solutions and approach that can be found. One is simplification of existing techniques or technologies. So examples, Foldscope and origami paper-based microscope. The ECG machine by General Electric, which is often mentioned as an example of innovation devoted to low resource settings. Another one is use of modern technologies to tackle old problems, and all the smartphone-based solutions or 3D printing solutions based on these new technologies applied to solve old problems are relevant examples. Third one, diversion of existing tools for completely different purposes. paper clips in surgery, urinary reagent strips for evaluation of cerebrospinal or synovial fluid, and here you can find examples. And finally, bottom-up innovation in which use of low-tech or no-tech approaches to solve local unmet needs. One example is the kangaroo care for preterm infants, in which the baby is simply taken by the mother in contact, skin to skin, to prevent hypothermia. Okay, you can find again some example, maybe relevant for you. Finally, third point, third approach, reverse innovation. It was proposed by Vijay Govindarajan, a professor of businesses, and it is the strategy for innovation, for design innovation in emerging or developing markets, and then distributing these innovations in developed markets. He wrote in 2009, this How GE is Disrupting Itself. He was a consultant of GE at that time, and a few years later, this book that had a big success in the field. What's the concept? The traditional path for sharing innovation is making innovative products, projects in the developed country, let's call it this way, or rich country if you like, and then downscale the product, make it low-cost version, less equipped, less functionalities, to have a low-cost version of that same project, of that same system, to be sold in the developing country. The new path for indicated by reverse innovation is that starting from the constraints from the specific needs of a less developed context or less low resource settings, you can design something that can address those specific needs, but then can turn to be useful and can have success also in more rich markets. And the classical example is the one by GE, so relevantly in the medical field, the ECG device, handheld, sold at $1,000 at that time, that was designed for rural India, or the PC-based echo machine, ultrasound machine, again designed for rural China, and then sold, let's say, everywhere, specifically in the United States. Some quotes, but I think I have to run. But the concept of reverse innovation also implies the idea that developed countries can learn and benefit from innovation coming from undeveloped countries, let's say with quotes. This is not obvious. There are barriers. You can see here a paper a few years ago regarding the barriers for this kind of movement. They hear Africa and they think that there can't be any good services there. The perceived context in cross-national learning. And this is barriers that we have in our mind and we have to destroy. So it is something, it implies turning the world upside down. And this is the title of this fourth book I propose you, by Nigel Crisp. He was the former director of the UK National Health Service, and again he's presenting a lot of examples, not only and not mainly related to devices, more for health care organization, in which we have this reverse movement from for innovation. Okay, said this, now from the real world, some examples, and it's my pleasure to introduce these two companies, BioVerse or BioVerse, depending on the context, and EBD or IBD, Italian Biomedical Devices. We have here engineers from these companies. They are former students of mine. I'm quite proud of this, so I want to point it out. And we start with the BioVerse. Okay, Barbara Tomasini, the floor is yours.